Hello, everyone. I am Rochelle Ferris. I am one of the senior judges for this session. I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and then Christine will introduce herself, and then we can have the team introduce themselves. I am Rochelle Ferris. This is probably my 6th year doing IBES, doing judging. I retired from technology a few years ago. I managed people and projects for several large companies like Oracle, SAP, and UKG. Right now, I'm currently enjoying my encore career as a chaplain at a major hospital. So, Christine?
Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Christine Machado. This is my 7th year judging, my 1st year as a senior judge. So I'm looking forward to Rochelle showing me the ropes. And let's see, I'm retired as well, worked for large corporations in a business capacity, also real estate appraising. I was a senior vice president of banking and operations and customer service background. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Should we start with Lily?
Hi, I'm Lily Fairbank-Bermejo. I'm going to be your artificial intelligence expert for the program today.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. I'm going to be your ethical expert today.
Oh, okay.
My name is Jay Stone, and I will be your financial advisor.
I'm Cooper Z, and I'll be your sustainability consultant.
And I am Lucy Plouffe, and I'll be your legal advisor today.
Okay. All right. I'm going to read this statement, and then I will ask the team one question. In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. You have 25 minutes to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, teams will be uninterrupted. When you're finished, the judges will ask you questions for 10 to 15 minutes. During Q&A, both you and the judges stay in character. After Q&A, the judges will give you feedback outside the role playing.
Good morning, and thank you, esteemed members of the California Farmland Trust, for joining us today. My name is Lily Fairbank-Bermejo. I'm going to be your artificial intelligence expert.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Delgado. I'm your ethical consultant today.
My name is Jay Stone. I'm your legal advisor. I mean financial advisor.
I'm Cooper Z, your sustainability consultant.
And I'm Lucy Plouffe, your legal advisor.
Awesome. So today we are going to address the San Joaquin Valley water crisis, and we are going to try and give you the best way to deal with it. Just for a brief overview of the San Joaquin Valley, the climate is very hot and arid, and it is a very large agricultural center in the US. Despite this, it has been farmed pretty consistently since the gold rush in like the 1850s. But it wasn't until the 1930s and 40s when the subsurface aquifer discovered that the pattern of misuse and mismanagement of the water began, when deep well turbine pumps were built to access the aquifer's water. This drought has been exacerbated by climate change and also just general overuse. Usable water that was once accessible at 60 to 100 feet is now reportedly only accessible at 1,400 feet. And the deeper you dig, the more it costs you to use than farm with that water. Not only that, but if water continues to be extracted at its current rate, 40% of the valley's public wells will go dry or partially dry by 2040. This is in the very near future, and something has to be done about this. So what are we here proposing? AI-powered drip irrigation. If you're not familiar with either of these systems, drip irrigation is a subsurface irrigation that applies water directly through a plant's roots through micro irrigating tubes called drippers. It is highly efficient and limits the loss of water from heat, evaporation, wind, all of the natural elements. In combination with the smart irrigation system driven by AI, this can be a total game changer. The system we're proposing has 3 main components. water zoning, which analyzes the land based on sun exposure, soil type, and slope to determine the best placement for crops. The San Joaquin Valley grows over 300 varieties of crops, so this kind of efficiency is extremely crucial, especially with crop rotations and all of the complicated agricultural logistics. We want a system that can ensure the best placement and efficiency. Arguably, the most important component of our system is the predictive scheduling. With our below ground sensors that are going to actually collect and analyze the data on water levels, soil moisture level, and crop water requirements, they will adapt watering to our crops in real time. So if somehow in this very dry valley, we have a pretty big rainstorm and moisture is retained in the soil, our systems will be able to read that and know, okay, we can hold off on watering for these crops, or maybe these crops still need more water, and it will be completely independent and we'll be able to adapt super quickly. Lastly, but still important, is leak detection. If a drip irrigation system does go wrong and something leaks or bursts or whatever, up to 50% of the water that is being applied can be lost. However, our leak detection system can halt water flow in real time, completely eliminating that efficiency. This is why we want to use AI to power this smart irrigation system. It completely reduces any human error and make sure that oversight is completely managed in its own. These components of our system, in combination with our subsurface drip irrigation and our sensors, are going to make the most revolutionary commercial agriculture tech yet. So again, why do we want to use AI? Well, existing irrigation is just very inefficient in the San Joaquin Valley, and no matter where you look. Most forms of irrigation are surface irrigation, that's flooding or furrow irrigation, and sprinkler irrigation. This is widespread across America, and the San Joaquin Valley mostly uses sprinkler systems. Up to 35% of the water, though, from sprinkler irrigation can be lost from heat, evaporation, and wind, and crops only absorb around 50% of the water that's applied to them through flood irrigation. Again, not ideal, especially in areas with water scarcity. And this goes for a lot of agricultural land. Most places where agriculture is very large and prominent have little water resources, which doesn't make a ton of sense, but it's our job to tell you how to best use them. Our solution can work, and it's very efficient. Drip irrigation on its own can reduce water usage up to 60%. Home smart irrigation systems, so like smaller scale for your lawns, reduce water usage around 50% on average. Obviously, when scaled up to commercial agriculture, this number will change, but it is still something to keep in mind. Additionally, the digital agriculture market is expected to grow $11 billion in the next 4 years, making this a perfect market opportunity for us to be on. How do we know our solution will work? It's a little ambitious, maybe outlandish, kind of scary to bring such new technology into farming, especially in an area that's so important to California and the United States. Well, in this, another agricultural center that's very important to the US and California is the Imperial Valley. And they did an experiment recently where they applied drip irrigation to 6 of their commercial sweet corn fields, while the other 5 remained using their traditional furrow method. After about a year, an average of 37% less water was used on these fields with drip irrigation, saving 2.2 acre feet of water per acre. Farmers had reported they had never even imagined water savings like this possible, especially for such a thirsty crop like corn. And again, for our smart irrigation systems, and what the company called WeatherSense installed outdoor sensors and controllers on a very large office complex in Texas, which is similarly very hot and dry and receives little rainfall like the San Joaquin Valley. In the first year of these systems, they saved 12.5 million gallons of water. This was a 40% decrease of water use on a 372,000 square foot land. And the high installation costs of this smart system were paid back in 1.5 years. I know it seems like this might be a crazy thing to do, but we know that these things individually can work. So why not combine them and make the most of it? I would now like to hand this off to Cooper, who is going to talk to you about the sustainability of our system.
Thank you very much, Lily. Now, to understand why it's important to upgrade irrigation to our proposed AI smart model, we need to identify what it is the San Joaquin farms are responsible for sustaining. Ensuring safe and reusable water is kept for generations goes beyond the individual farm. The state of California is the US's largest agricultural producer, after all. As such, the San Joaquin farms are responsible for the food on the plates of Americans across the country. Children born this year will grow up to be adults in the year 2042, a generation of bright minds to push our nation into the future. However, they aren't going to get there without food, and food isn't going to be produced without usable water. As Lily mentioned, 40% of the valley's public supply of wells are expected to be dry or severely depleted by 2040. Time is our biggest enemy, but it can also be our greatest ally. The sooner AI irrigation is helping sustain the resources we have, the less of a problem it will pose to children of the future. In addition to feeding American citizens, it's important to address the San Joaquin farms' roles in feeding our economy. The crop revenue in the US alone produces $24 billion annually. As the leaders in the industry, it's important that crop production is maintained and kept steady. If water reserves were to diminish, crop production would decrease as well. A lower agricultural output could result in higher prices, which would cause demand to fall. And less demand means less people are getting the food they need, and the statewide economy would lose a crucial aspect of its revenue. San Joaquin farms also have a responsibility to their employees. The valley of over 420,000 workers currently working the fields to produce crops. That is roughly 10% of the valley's population whose livelihoods depend on their work on the farms. Ensuring their job safety keeps the unemployment rate from falling, which would also ensure our economy is stabilized. AI irrigation is so much more than just reducing water waste. It's about sustaining the lives of future generations, sustaining the crop industry's contribution to the economy, and sustaining the jobs of the workers of the San Joaquin Valley. But the responsibilities do not end there. I'm going to pass it over to Alyssa, who's going to touch on what ethical responsibilities we hold as well.
Thank you, Cooper. As the ethical consultant, I wanted to get to the bottom of this problem and most importantly, find a solution that allows us to be a bridge between AI and agriculture. Looking deeper at our solution, it is quite clear how this issue can quite literally have a ripple effect on others who are impacted by this water waste management problem. Firstly, we have an ethical responsibility to the citizens and farmers. We want to ensure you, the California Farmland Trust, that you are getting your quality plants and crops that you worked so hard to produce. So by implementing the solution, we can help save one drop at a time to sustain the food source of thousands. Speaking of drops, look at irrigation systems. The San Joaquin Valley is one of several cities within California that is contributing to the rapidly declining groundwater issue. With our solution in place, it can alleviate this issue, helping restore hundreds of aquifers and groundwater basin levels. Next, there's people that don't have access to water. Note that the lack of access to water is not just a logistical issue, but it is also a social justice issue that is detrimental to the Asian American and Hispanic and Latino communities, just to name a few. Let's not forget the people that rely on the San Joaquin Valley. The San Joaquin Valley is probably known as the backbone of agriculture to thousands in the United States. By turning a blind eye to their poor irrigation systems, we neglect a core part of our nation's food source. Therefore, it is our responsibility to do our part to sustain this core aspect of the agricultural field. Then there's the legal entities that are responsible for water sources in California. Moving beyond the San Joaquin Valley area, we can see how these actions can be further implemented on the statewide level. Therefore, it is our responsibility to be the change we want to see by implementing the solution as a gateway to seeing statewide change. Lastly, environments and ecosystems affected. It is no secret that these overdrafts are severely harming the San Joaquin Valley's plants, animals, and agriculture as a whole. With our solutions in place, we are one step closer to improving our ecosystems in the long run. And keeping all of these individuals in mind, they are our guiding pillars that help us be a leader in the irrigation field. They should help you, the California Farmland Trust, see how we have the power to prevent water waste one drop at a time. Looking at how we can tie the solution to the UN SDGs, our solution can intertwine itself with SDGs 6 and 12. Specifically, our solution can fulfill targets 6.4, 6.5, 12.2, and 12.5. And now I would like to pass this on to our legal expert, Lucy.
Hello, my name is Lucy Plouffe, and I'll be your legal advisor today. Starting off with our primary legal implications, we have three main topics to consider here when it comes to our solution of AI drip irrigation in the San Joaquin Valley. The first being SGMA, or Sustainability Groundwater Management Act. With nearly 40% of the water used for irrigation originating from groundwater, this is an extremely important act. Next, water rights or laws. The legalities surrounding water are somewhat sparse but clear. There are rights and licensing to who can use it, as well as how much can be used. Finally, we will be covering AI law amongst agriculture and the lack thereof it. Delving a little bit deeper into SGMA, what is it? This is an act legally requiring local water users or farms to establish groundwater sustainability agencies and create plans to manage groundwater sustainability by the 2040s. This involves reducing water use and possibly finding new water sources to ensure long-term sustainability. So how is this act implemented? In order to implement SGMA, grants are gifted by the Department of Water Resources to local agencies. These local agencies are known as GSAs, of which are tasked with implementing SGMA through GSPs, or groundwater sustainability plans. For these plans to succeed, with the grant funds given, supply including groundwater monitoring wells, stream gauges, and statewide data sets, reports, as well as other information are provided and taken down to regulate sustainability. The Sustainability of Groundwater Management Act is incredibly important when it comes down to the legal implications and regards of our solution. This is because the majority of water used among all irrigation originates from groundwater, and that is what we intend on using for our system as well. So putting a stop to the overdrafting and focusing on the sustainability of groundwater is a must, because without adhering to this act of groundwater sustainability, farms will face the consequences of overdrafting and lack of water for crops, as well as local GSAs facing state intervention, meaning the State Water Control Board steps in to protect and replenish groundwater until returning to acceptable sustainability levels. Next, we will have water law. I would like to preface this with saying that as a company, we do not plan on expanding upon any current water rights and/or laws in place. Water laws are sparse but very clear, and our solution will adhere to such laws. To get further into water law up and downstream, there is a very important factor to consider, and that is the California Water Code. This code entails 35 divisions, including any legislative information regarding water within the state of California. Mentioning water quality, SGMA, irrigation districts, replenishment, safe drinking, you name it, the California Water Code has it. And a very important factor mentioned within this is water rights. These rights state the requisites to ownership and usage of water. It is said that waters cannot be owned by individuals, groups, businesses, or even governmental agencies. However, permits, licenses, and registrations give individuals and others the right to beneficially use reasonable amounts of water, the documents of which are handed out on a local governing basis. With that said, our system will use the amount we are allowed given the circumstances of where our irrigation system is installed. Finally, there is irrigation. Simply put, applying water to crops. It is all about water and the sustainability of it. With this said, another legality our solution must adhere to is the ILRP, or Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program. This coinciding with irrigation districts. The main purpose of these irrigation districts are to facilitate the efficient and equitable distribution of water resources to support agricultural production and safety, as well as the program making it a requirement to submit data of any discharge pollutants from irrigation and any possible overdrafting of groundwater. Finally, the last legal implication for our solution we have involves AI. Only until very recently did we begin to heavily use and immerse ourselves into the world of AI, this equaling a lack of AI-based law. And even though there aren't many laws in place, we don't anticipate on any future laws getting in the way of our solution. We intend to use AI for its beneficiaries of efficiently and sustainably providing aid to crops and farmers through irrigation systems. When it comes to current agricultural usage of AI, the majority of data comes from a wide range collection of planting crop and weather intake. In other words, many farms currently share and use similar AI data banks, ending in a fear of information leakage. So with data protection for AI being the only prevalent bill proposal on the rise, we plan on accepting whatever needs to be applied in order for our solution to be legally sound. Bringing to your attention the California Consumer Privacy Act, an act that was put into place in order to give consumers more control over information that businesses collect. And with this act as a requirement for our solution, our users will hopefully have peace of mind. This concludes our legal portion, and I will now be passing it off to Jay Stone.
Thank you, Lucy. So far, we've covered the groundwater sustainability crisis, our proposed solution, the important ethical considerations, and the legal boundaries. Now, we need to confirm if this solution makes financial sense. In this section, I'll cover the cost of installation, water savings over time, and when our solution becomes viable. To help understand what money will be spent on, here we have the costs broken down by asset. There are three components to our solution: the drip irrigation, soil sensors to monitor field conditions, and a control panel. Drip irrigation has a cost per acre for installation, as do the soil sensors. As you can see, installing the drip irrigation is the bulk of our costs at $800 per acre. Soil sensors add $330 per acre, leaving us with a total cost per acre of $1,300. The control panel, however, does not have a per acre cost. You only need one per zone. It could be an entire farm or a field of a single variety of crop. Before we get any further, let me introduce some key statistics. The price of water per acre foot that we can expect to pay is $100. This includes both the price of water itself and pumping fees. Next, we have a 45% reduction in water usage. This is our projected water savings for our solution. This is a huge reduction in water usage and, just as importantly, water bills. Later, we will see how quickly this reduction will make the investment worth it. Lastly, and this is important for our models, the average amount of water annually applied to San Joaquin Valley crops is 3 acre-feet. Our solution will reduce this value by 45%. Here is a model that helps visualize just how impactful this irrigation system is. It compares our solution in blue to an average control in purple. While the ratio of water cost saved stays the same, we can see how the dollar value of the savings steadily increases. However, this is before we factor in the cost of installing our system, which I will now break down for you. The all-important question: how long until this new system is worth the investment? Well, here's your answer. When we combine installation and irrigation costs and compare it to a control, we see that by year 9, current irrigation is more costly than our solution. The table to the right provides exact values. Again, if things hold constant, the California Farmland Trust will have spent less on our system than on current irrigation methods by year 9. Before we conclude, I want to address some variables that could impact your finances even further, namely additional sources of funding and the uncertain cost of inaction. One possible source of funding is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Grant Program. It was established as part of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and it aids transitions to sustainable groundwater use.
Okay.
In 2022.
Your 5-minute warning. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. And aids transition to sustainable groundwater use. In 2022, it awarded $150.5 million to farms and other organizations pursuing this mission. Submitting an application in the next round of grants could substantially reduce installation costs. Next, we have the cost of inaction. The costs here stem from an uncertain future. This is, after all, a crisis, and crises have a tendency to get worse. If aquifers begin to dry up, farms might have to engage in water trading, which could raise water costs by 47%. Additionally, other expenses could arise, such as those associated with digging deeper wells. Both of these are a result of water overuse. Finally, we have a worst-case scenario. If no actions are taken to reduce water consumption or expand the water supply, there could be a 17% reduction in 17% of the San Joaquin Valley could be fallowed by 2040. This would mean a 17% reduction in revenue. As you can see, there's a clear financial incentive to invest in our solution beyond what the system itself saves directly. Now, I'd like to invite Alyssa to begin wrapping up our presentation.
Thank you, Jay. Reflecting on all of these costs, it may seem like an expensive solution, but in the long run, doing this can have its benefits to the San Joaquin Valley, such as supporting a backbone of agricultural economy that is crucial to the food sources of thousands in America. Being a core food source and work for the San Joaquin Valley for those that depend on it, and actively combating the water scarcity problem. These core ideas can tie back into our core pillars of what ripple effect counseling is all about. And with the help of you, the California Farmland Trust, we can be the first drop to create a ripple effect in the agricultural field. And now I want to pass this off to Lily to conclude our presentation.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I would like to thank you all again for joining us today. What we really wanted was, again, to create a ripple effect. The San Joaquin Valley contains 6 of the top 10 agricultural producers in the United States. We can set the example and we can create a revolution in the agriculture field. We invite you to help us save water, save money, and save the San Joaquin Valley. Thank you very much.
Hi, thanks you guys. That was a great presentation. And we have the next 10 minutes or so for questions. And could you clarify again what our role is, Christine, and my role are?
Can I clarify it? I'm sorry, Rochelle.
What was our role as judges?
You know what? I did not have the documentation, so sorry,
Yeah, I don't have it either. So maybe the
sorry,
team, can you clarify what our role is?
Yeah, I don't mind explaining. So essentially, a lot of the farms in the San Joaquin Valley are overseen by this thing called the California Farmland Trust, who essentially provide funding to the farms.
So you were presenting to us what is our role? I know
we are essentially asking you, it's like Shark Tank. You're
okay.
You're Barbara Corcoran. We're asking you for money to help so our farms can implement the system.
Okay, great.
So the document says we're the California Farmland Board of Trustees. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I have a couple of questions. If we could do some further explanation about the AI portion, how AI is being used. Will it be like monitoring the control panel? Will it replace humans? Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. So one great thing about this system is with the farming that's currently in place, there's already not a ton of human intervention with the current systems. Like the sprinklers have automatic timers, and it's the same with flood irrigation. It's just a matter of, sometimes it's not even really a matter of pushing a button. It just knows, okay, what day has passed. Our system is not expected to replace any jobs. It just improves upon current ideas, and it's also a little more complicated. It does do a lot of monitoring and analyzing, but that monitoring and analyzing of the data, like moisture requirements, like crop water, kind of wasn't done anyways. It's a lot of data from the past, and current farmers don't really go further once they have that data. So they don't continue to improve upon that and adjust water accordingly. Our system would do that, so no one had to. Not that they do, but yeah.
Okay. And then my next question is for Lucy. I actually worked for a large California, the Southern California Water Agency, and our water in California is so political and so complicated. So is your solution mostly regional for San Joaquin Valley, or do you envision it scaling to statewide?
Yes, so currently all the legalities that I went over, they kind of reside on a mostly governmental level within the state of California, but they're looked over by local agencies, the GSAs, for the most part. So at the current moment, it's mostly on a state level, but we do plan to go nationwide.
Okay, state to nation. Okay. And then I guess maybe this might be for Jay. Is the solution right now, is it scalable? Someone mentioned our home watering systems, which we all have, but do we have plans to make this scalable statewide? Because that would be huge.
I think it can be done. We have all these different components. We're just combining the new irrigation systems and basically a commercial version of a home watering system. And it's pretty simple. You just have a control panel and a separate, generally an app on a phone that lets a person monitor and control it directly, and then the AI does all the work.
Okay. And Christine, I have been dominating, so I'm going to let you take it.
Oh, you're doing great. Thank you. And I'll have to work with Jeremy on where to get the documentation, so that would be very helpful. My question, I had a couple questions. Thank you guys. Fantastic job. I felt like it was you gave us a lot of information that I could use. And I did have a question for Cooper. So on the solutions, so ensuring generations to come will have their food. Is there any, with this solution, I always like to think of the devil's advocate a little bit. Again, I think, Rochelle, you asked a little bit, but are we sure it's not taking away jobs from the economy by providing this solution? Have we looked into any counter effect?
Yeah, so definitely AI has been circulating the news constantly with taking people's jobs, especially in more artsy things like digital art and writing. But this solution isn't supposed to take jobs away from the San Joaquin Valley. We're trying to ensure that San Joaquin Valley jobs are kept safe. This is just to help alleviate the problem of water scarcity, to make sure that that process is more smooth. A lot of water irrigation techniques are outdated and old. This is just a new interface that'll help make these problems less prominent in the San Joaquin Valley.
Okay, thank you. I also had a question for Lily. Let me get back to it for a moment. So I think we talked about, oh, you talked about crop rotation. Was that you, Lily? That talked about crop
Yeah, that was
rotation
me,
a little
yeah.
bit? So does this help with what we're going to grow in the valley? Does that make any changes to that we might get some angry farmers out there? Or I'm just trying to think of how they're going to come to us if we decide to go with your solution.
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, it's obviously up to a farmer's discretion what crops they're growing, and if it's been working for them, it works. There's something to say about wasteful crops going in the San Joaquin Valley, like alfalfa, which is very water thirsty and not very useful, honestly, except as feed. But there are more efficient rotations that just help replenish the soil and use less water, like corn and soybean is a popular rotation in farms. So it's honestly just giving you the best output. That doesn't mean farmers have to change exactly what they grow, but maybe they change the order of what they grow and somehow, so we shouldn't interfere with that on any level. It's still up to the farmer's discretion. We're just giving them a better solution in theory.
Great, thank you. So you triggered another question that I have now for Jay. So you talked about, I think it was Jay, for financials. Is that correct? Yes. So Jay, so on the thirsty crops, does this have allowing this water sensing and the water's going right to the roots, as I read in Lily's slides, does this help with more profitable crops? Have we looked into that at all, being able to provide that to the farmers?
There have been a variety of studies that have analyzed the impact of like subsurface irrigation on crop yields. And in some cases, we've seen that increase up to 20% just per plant.
So by applying this, I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. How did it increase to 20%?
By using subsurface irrigation and just more efficient watering methods, plants get exactly what they need. And this is, in some cases, increases crop yields by up to 20%.
Okay. That's good.
Christine, I have one more question.
Yeah, let's do it.
I would, and this is probably for Lily. Lily, how much investigation did you do into like current AI what currently exists in AI.
Yeah, we did a pretty good amount of research to see how AI is being used today. Of course, in its most familiar forms, it's going to be personal assistance, and it's used for just a lot of automation processes. Now, as Cooper had mentioned earlier, it's becoming a popular form of like digital art and generating images, but also ChatGPT is super popular right now and writing text. In this specific sense, it's not being used pretty much at all. It's very open opportunity for us to create a new AI thing, even if it's used like on a smaller scale, and smart irrigation does exist to some extent. Just making it more efficient and adaptable and with AI is what we're going for.
Okay, so that leads to one more small question. Jay, did you include the AI development in your finance?
No, I did not.
Okay.
We are not going to be developing it all directly. There have been a number of other institutions, I'm thinking University of Georgia and University of Massachusetts, that have been building these systems experimentally. And there are also some commercial ventures that have been investing into this as well. The control panel will be providing most, if not all, of what we really need.
So maybe another question for me that comes up is kind of looking at the payback is 9 years, which seems to be quite a while. Can you give me more reasons why, as I think about the solar industry and costs coming down over time with new technologies, why should I move today to do this rather than just maybe waiting a few years while the technology advances and reaching the same endpoint, but just waiting a little longer? But why should I move now?
Well, the fun part about that is you kind of can't wait. First, legally, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, there will be repercussions if you are not using water sustainably and below a certain level of water by 2040. But again, we don't know exactly how long this aquifer will last. It doesn't have a lot of time considering how often people are using it, and it's better to invest in this now because it doesn't, if there's no water, then there's no farms, and it's better to have that high upfront cost that ensures your future and ensures your future profits, than just to be like, yeah, it's a very daunting number. However, as we saw, it costs more to not do it. You will save money, you will make more money because crop yields are proven to increase. A case study I didn't have time to include was Israel, who invented drip irrigation, have seen a consistent 20% increase in crop yields. So you're not only, and we didn't even get into the effects of increased crop yields on financials because we just, for time's purposes, it is a worthwhile investment because it'll pay off, it'll make you more money, but also we have to use less water or else we'll get fined for it, which is another big part.
Thank you.
So just a follow-up then, I guess Cooper or Lily, well, anybody, that to Kevin's question. So the 9 year, because I had that marked down too, 9 years for payback, was that only looking at the water usage compared to, was that just the water usage payback? Not the crops?
That was
Okay.
just the savings on water bills. Yeah.
On water bills. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
I have a similar question while we're on this topic. Did you include any or look at future replacement costs, the overall lifetime cost, as opposed to just installation costs? At some point, this equipment will need, or the systems will need replaced. Is that number something that you looked at, and is it included, or is that something still to be considered?
I have an estimated lifespan of 15
Okay.
to 20 years for the drip
Okay.
irrigation.
Yeah, that's
But
helpful. Thank
With
you.
leak detection, it can help, if something bursts, we won't be pumping water through it, so it'll reduce the repair costs because it just reduces the damage and the wear and tear. but I don't have exact numbers.
That's fine. Thank you. That's helpful. I have two other questions. Again, along the risk analysis side of things. The mentioned early in the presentation was that there were individual things that were successful, but as we combine them together, how much did we dig into the combined effects? There's hopefully some positive combined effects, but also there could be some negative combined effects. I just wonder if that's something to continue to look into, or if that was considered in this scope.
I did consider it in the scope because, as always, especially with AI, such a new technology, there's the question, what happens if the inherent risk of using AI in this technology goes awry?
Yes.
However, drip irrigation on its own for the past was invented in like the 60s. It's been
Right.
fairly successful. Smart irrigation is currently popular, especially on a smaller scale, and there have been no major issues that I have seen with that. What I saw from a combination of these systems is mostly net positives. We stated a 45% like projected like reduction in water, but
Correct.
that was a lower end estimate of what we actually think could happen. Generally, with this kind of efficiency, who knows, but I don't see a ton going awry so long as the aquifer stays available. But the thing is, if more farms in the San Joaquin Valley implement this, we increase the lifespan of this aquifer, we increase the lifespan of agriculture in the San Joaquin Valley, and also the jobs, the longevity of this agricultural output.
Okay, so the 45% is a conservative estimate. There's an upside potentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
All right. You guys did very well. I'm gonna say we can break out of our roles, and you guys did very well with getting questions fired at you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Okay. All righty. Lucy, you did a great intro and answered many questions. And Cooper, my feedback to you is I liked your answers and the quick way you managed all of the questions fired at you. And overall, I think it was a very good presentation, and I liked the summary.
Mm-hmm.
Christine?
Yeah, I mean, I think excellent job presenting. I liked your theme. You guys were you were cohesive. You guys really knew each other's stuff. Kudos to dropping Ripple in towards the end multiple times. I was ready to ripple with you. And a couple of you, I think you guys knew your stuff really well, but you could slow it down. I know you're trying to get the 25 minutes in or pause, just a little pause in between your thoughts, because a couple of times I wanted to absorb what you said, but I had to move on to the next thing. So I couldn't quite absorb it as much. And I would say too, just knowing like a lot of times you walk away with your presentation, you could have just added a couple of your, a couple of your points, because there was a couple of things I wanted to write down. It was on the slide, it was good. But I had to move on to what you guys were saying next. But because you want me to be able to go back later when we're talking about this with the board members to have your points down, right? So, but I think it was such a good job, really.
Thank you
Might be
so
it.
much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought the slide presentation was very clear, sort of laid out all the essential points, wasn't overburdened with words, and I thought each of you did a good job of kind of filling in all the essential information, and really the slides were just kind of a summary, but brought interesting and important points each time. I think maybe just minor feedback. I think some of you, I think a lot of you did a really great job. Just one thing to keep in the back of your mind is kind of when you're presenting, to maybe think about trying to avoid reading. I mean, your research was so great, all of those things, but I think a lot of times when you're presenting and interacting with a board or other group, when you just have that connection, everything flows. It just things tend to work a little bit better. But I mean, the depth of all the information and facts you provided, the research, clearly that came out in the Q&A. So good job.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
yeah. Any other comments or feedback?
This is my second year doing this, so this is one of the best I've seen. I think from an improvement standpoint, I would say you covered a lot of the ethical stuff in the legal area, but because this is specifically an ethical conference, I would encourage you to continue to develop those questions and considerations in the future. But excellent job, very well done.
Thank you so much.
Okay, if we have any other, it's 8:47. Do we have any other comments? Because otherwise we can end this. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so
Good job.
much.
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.